lots of arguments, heated arguments, both from the passenger and the driver's side windows that have been rolled down for the majority of this pursuit. In the last hour at one point, well, of course, we've seen multiple near misses and also going through a park and running through a fence.
Yeah, let's show you that video. This was the most dramatic moment of the pursuit so far. You see the guy basically stuck, comes up near a fence, so he decided to drive right through it. You see it potentially damaged, it looks like, the left side of the vehicle a bit. The bike was left behind. The guy just kept driving, went through a park where some people were. At that point, he's driven on the sidewalk at some point, nearly missing several trees, nearly missing people. Thankfully, so far, we do not believe. Now this guy's driving on the wrong side of the road. This is where things can get really dangerous here. Driving quickly on the wrong side of the road. Looks like he's got some empty road here as he approaches an intersection in the Garden Grove area. This person has been driving recklessly throughout the last hour.
Sure, and gone through several cities. I mentioned this started in Southgate. We've seen him go through Long Beach, Bellflower. We last left you just after 6 o'clock this evening in Norwalk and now in the Garden Grove area after going through Anaheim. So here we are in Garden Grove. He has this area, this roadway, pretty much to himself, which that's good news at this point, so that everyone else can stay safe. But you saw on the other side of the road there, you saw a police officer posted up there waiting for him. So they are strategizing as to how to, as he comes up to this intersection, he's blocked in there. He's going to maneuver around and then pick up speed. So they are strategizing as to how to bring this driver into custody and then, more importantly, to get her, the female passenger, into custody and away from him and to safety.
And we have not so far, speaking of police strategy, seen any attempts at a spike strip or any attempts at a pit maneuver. So far, police have just sort of let this guy drive wildly through the roads and kept it pretty close to him. Sometimes you see police enter what's called tracking mode, which is where they back off and let the helicopter really follow the guy without keeping the cop cars too close. That has not been the case here. And the fact that this female passenger may be in danger may be one of the reasons why police are staying closer to that vehicle.
So this is southbound Brookhurst. As he continues on Brookhurst here, as most recent intersection was Orangewood. And, you know, the speeds are slow at this point because he can't go that fast because of all the traffic in this area. As he's approaching another intersection, it looks like, and he is stopped, but always figures out a way to maneuver around these unsuspecting drivers who are just trying to get through the rest of their Wednesday evening. Yeah, he boxed in.
So what are police going to use this opportunity? Here's a moment where they could do something, but police approaching. You wait at this light's probably about to turn.
Definitely
now
realizing that he may be at a dead end here.
So what do police do here? Here's an opportunity to do something. Does the female passenger try to get out of the vehicle here? No. Police now driving on the wrong side of the road. They're going to try to get more aggressive here following this car.
So you saw him there stuck in traffic, managed to weasel his way out. We've seen that multiple times, but that was the closest that we've ever seen it come to an end within the midst of traffic here. South Brookhurst.
I mean, from a driving perspective, this guy has kind of amazingly been able to get out of a lot of precarious situations, including, you know, a dead end, a cul-de-sac, a field, other things, and just able to sort of keep driving, keep moving, and not be caught so far.
And in fact, we had to go off the air, as Alex alluded to earlier, because of the fact that our chopper had to refuel. So you wonder how much fuel this four-door sedan has, because, again, this has been going for well over an hour.
So we continue to drive on, and now in Orange County. This is a pursuit that's gone through L.A. County, now into Orange County. This domestic violence suspect pursuit continues. Earlier, we saw the female passenger waving her hands outside of the vehicle, looked like she was bracing herself. We don't know if she has been in communication with law enforcement at
Ooh,
all.
Wrong side of the road here. This is westbound Westminster, making that right turn from Brookhurst. And all of those drivers there, fortunately, didn't get caught up in an accident, blew through that intersection back to where he's supposed to be on the right-hand side of the road. But again, desperate times call for desperate measures, as they say.
And yet police continue to allow this guy to drive on, worried about her safety, the safety of that female passenger, worried about their own safety, and of course having to worry about the safety of all of the drivers, unsuspecting drivers coming out, probably coming home at the end of a long day in rush hour traffic in the middle of Orange County, now encountering a pursuit driving through their neighborhood. So at last check, we were in Stanton, back in Stanton, as he drives around several different Orange County neighborhoods. Now we're Garden Grove. My apologies for that. Garden
Grove seeming to pick up speed here, having just turned off of westbound Westminster from Brookhurst here. And you can see the officers trailing him, as we've seen all evening now, approaching this four-way stop.
We are going to bring into our coverage now Dennis Zine, who was joining us a little earlier on the Fox 11 News at 5. He's a former LAPD officer, been involved in many pursuits himself, also a former member of the LA City Council. He is our police specialist. Dennis, bring us up to speed in terms of what you're seeing as somebody who knows police tactics. Now we're more than an hour into this. Where are the mindset of the officers at?
Well, they're obviously calmed down. The adrenaline is now back to normal because they've been involved in this for that extended period of time. They're continuing the pursuit. Again, the concern about the passenger, the victim, who we believe there's domestic violence involved. So concern of rescuing her from this individual, bringing this car to a stop. He's obviously negotiated a lot of turns up and down through the surface streets, business areas, freeways, etc. This has been going on for, as you say, over an hour. The units are continuing with this pursuit. He lost them for a little bit. They recaptured through the assistance of the helicopter. The helicopter is a valuable, valuable tool to keep observation of the individual, the vehicle, the suspects, the victim, etc. So we're just continue with this, and thank goodness that Skyfox got some fuel and they're back up and operating. So we're back basically where we left off, still pursuing the vehicle, trying to rescue the passenger and apprehend the driver, take him into custody.
Last check here, southbound Magnolia from Westminster. It looks like a residential area. So talk about that, Dennis, if you could. We've seen him go through, of course, at this point in the last hour, residential areas, industrial areas. And no matter where he is, though, it seems to be heavy traffic as he near miss at an intersection there. And he's now
making a U-turn. Their chopper
his driving pattern is really bizarre. He's finding all outs he can get. He wants to continue moving, doesn't want to stop, doesn't want to impede his flow of traffic. So cutting off cars, doing whatever he needs to do to continue to elude the officers. And again, you got a chopper overhead. That chopper is communicating with the ground unit, so he can do all he wants. So eventually run out of fuel. Eventually something will happen that he'll get out of service. The driving pattern is such that the speed is not excessive now. He does speed up. He slows down. He gets on the freeway. Again, this individual is hot not to get caught. He's not going to escape. All he's doing is mounting more and more criminal charges against him. This kind of situation, he'll end up in jail and he'll do some time in prison for this type of activity. In addition to what happened, and if there's any harm, injury to the victim, who we know is the passenger in this vehicle, and I believe she was bracing herself with her feet up on the dashboard to protect herself from an impending collision. And you can imagine you're the passenger in the car, already domestic violence, and now you see this bizarre driving pattern. You're concerned about your safety. You're concerned about staying alive and not having your head go through the windshield. So really, really bizarre situation. But obviously the man is troubled. He's got concerns, and his troubles and concerns are only going to get worse when he's apprehended by the authorities. Hopefully he'll surrender peacefully. If not, then they'll use whatever force is reasonable and necessary to take him into custody. So this is far from over. As long as he's got fuel in that vehicle and the vehicle is operable, he's going to continue to go in, and the police will continue to chase.
We are now in the northern Orange County city of Westminster.
And you were describing the female passenger as she was cradled up inside just to protect herself. We just had a shot of her window, which was rolled up, which is different because this entire time it's been rolled down. So her window is rolled up. You're seeing now the driver's side. It is rolled down, so you can get a look at him. Dennis, Alex brought up a good point that throughout this hour-plus pursuit, we haven't seen one attempt at a pit maneuver, spike strips. Is that unusual?
Well, not really. Again, you've got the concern about the passenger. You got a passenger who's a female, domestic violence. You see the suspect striking her in the car during this pursuit. So, you know, there's violence involved. She's a victim, and there's ultimate concern about her safety. All those tools that we have, the spike strip, the pit maneuver, whatever, non-lethal weaponry, that all can pose a hazard to the passenger, the victim. So when you have a victim versus a typical pursuit, you got one suspect, the suspect's fleeing, you want to take that individual into custody, and you use whatever tools are necessary. This intensifies the issue and the concern for the safety of the passenger who's a domestic violence victim. So what you want to do is safeguard her at the same time in this pursuit. So they're going to follow. They're not going to terminate. I don't think in this kind of situation you want to terminate, because who knows what he's going to do to his victim when the officers are not visible. They're not around. There's not a helicopter overhead. Who knows what he's going to do if he's driving in this crazy fashion. So anything's possible, but what they need to do is rescue this lady as quickly as possible. But when you employ the spike strip, there could be hazard. When you do the pit maneuver, there could be hazard. So they're trying to bring this to a peaceful end. They've got a lot of restraint. As we see, they've had a lot of patience, a lot of restraint. Other than that one crash through the fence, I don't think there's been any other collisions. So a lot of luck on this individual's part. Is he under the influence? We don't know. But there's all those factors that go through. And by this time, the watch commander's involved, probably the captain's involved, probably the chief's involved from these small jurisdictions to make sure this is done in a proper fashion and they follow the letter to the T. Again, you've got broadcasts on the local stations. People are watching. They're going to be critiquing, criticizing. So there's a lot of concerns. The bottom line is police are here to protect and serve. They need to rescue that lady. Rescue lady number is one priority. Secondary, take him into custody and incarcerate him.
Now, our Skyfox technology showing that he has entered the Fountain Valley area.
We're on Newland Street right now, driving pretty fast, driving 60 miles an hour at some point on the side streets, which is dangerous, as we know.
Well, sure, you've got kids playing, you've got bicycles. When you get to the residential areas, all those factors come into play. When you're in a business area, there's obviously a lot of cars, people running across the street. There's all types of hazards involved. And when you're fleeing, you're concentrating on trying to get away. And this driving pattern, as we know, has been rather bizarre, rather hazardous at this particular time, over the speed limit. But the concern is take them into custody as quickly. They could do a pit maneuver. You got to have a speed that's less than 60 miles an hour. Normally around 30, 35 miles an hour is an ideal speed to take the car out. But then again, the car could flip. There could be damage. Ultimate concern for that passenger. Ultimate concern for the domestic violence victim. And as we've witnessed on this TV screen, he has struck that victim more than one time. So we don't know what precipitated, how it began, what kind of injury. Again, there's another factor. Does he have a weapon? Does he have a gun? Does he have a knife? Does he have other weapons at his disposal? So all these factors go through those officers. Ultimately, rescue her, apprehend him, take him to jail, impound the car, bring this to an end, and go back to a normal, peaceful community that we hopefully will regain as soon as this thing comes to an end, as soon as this pursuit comes to an end. But it's been going on for over an hour.
And we can add another community that has now been impacted by this. We are now in the Orange County city of Huntington Beach. We are on Newland Street heading through Huntington Beach as this suspect continues and once again driving on the wrong side of the road, now making a turn, and police sticking right behind him as he does so.
And you'll see other agencies jump in and jump out as they go through other communities through this region of Southern California. There's 88 cities within L.A. County. Most of those cities either contract with the sheriffs, have their own departments. So you've got a lot of police disposal. But in this particular case, we see at least 6 or 7 units that are following, sufficient units to put this to an end. But again, extreme caution because of the passenger. And we don't know if there's anyone in the back seat. I mean, there's so many concerns that go through these officers. And if there's one mistake, if there's one error, there's great criticism. But just think about you as a police officer in a vehicle chasing an individual who's got a woman who's being held hostage, who you know has been struck. Ultimate concern, and you want to use extreme caution for your safety as well as the safety of the female. And again, appropriate techniques to take the driver, the suspect, into custody in a professional, safe manner. There are a lot of factors that come into play that we don't see. And many of these officers carry body cams now, so everything will be recorded. When the after report is done, the after action, all those circumstances will come to play. How could we have stopped it earlier? Was it possible? What could we have done differently? You want to end up saying we did everything we could possibly do in a safe, professional manner, and everybody goes home at night safe and sound. He goes to jail and render aid to the female victim. This is a domestic violence victim.
So here we are. He's weaving in and out of these surface streets in Huntington Beach. He was just on Utica. Now he's on Florida Street from Beach Boulevard, the main thoroughfare there. Now picking up speed once again in this residential area, it looks like here. So you bring up the good point of kids could be playing out. It's a nice evening, 6:43, still plenty of daylight left. And here he goes, carries on his rampage here now on England Street in Huntington Beach.
And Huntington Beach has a lot of narrow streets. It's a wealthy community, a lot of narrow streets in that particular area. Most of the beach cities have narrow streets, narrow roadways, additional hazard because of people getting out of cars, getting in cars, walking across the street, kids playing in front yards, at bicycles, etc. A lot of hazards. Not like on the freeway. In the freeway, you don't have any of those hazards. You have is traffic, and that's all you have. Here you've got everything combined, traffic lights and pedestrians and trash cans in the road, you name it, and you have it on the residential streets. So a lot more hazard for the officers to face, as well as this individual to try and negotiate through, to maneuver his vehicle, if it is his vehicle, through the hazards that are part of the community. Now we're into another community. So I've lost count of how many communities he's traveled through, but he's traveled through a number of communities within this particular region of Southern California.
And Dennis, when we cover these pursuits, a lot of times we see the suspects here, they like to stay in areas that they're familiar with, but this is clearly not the case with this guy, whether or not he's familiar with Huntington Beach, but the fact that he's been through so many communities, and it only seems that, you know, his goal, of course, is just to stay away from being put in handcuffs, and also just to, he's letting traffic guide his left turns and right turns and where he goes.
Right. He has no idea where he is. He's just driving, and he finds an open path. He takes that path. He sees a red light. He goes through it. It doesn't matter. You see police cars stationed at different locations. They're not part of the pursuit, but they're there for backup to keep the traffic from colliding with this individual who has disregard for people, property, traffic lights, traffic laws, etc. So there's a good coordinated effort that we see in play here. But again, all these resources that are being tied up for this individual, all those resources could be handling 911 calls, could be responding to other incidents, but they're tied up with this situation. This is a tremendous amount of personnel, tremendous cost to the taxpayers for this one individual, for what this individual has done. Again, domestic violence is a felony. You can't ignore it. You can't say, well, we'll catch him next time, because who knows what he's going to do to that victim, that female victim that's in the car with him. So you've got to rescue her. That's of paramount significance and importance. And if you disregard that, then what good are the police if they can't rescue a female who we know has been the victim of domestic violence? So it's paramount that they continue with this, apprehend, and bring this to a peaceful conclusion as quickly as possible. But this man's not giving up. He eventually will run out of gas. There's no question. We don't know how much gas in that vehicle, but eventually, if everything else fails, he'll run out of gas.
And we've seen evidence of domestic issues, even just from our live picture, what seemed to be a very intense argument that may have been a physical argument happening during this pursuit. So we are now in the Huntington Beach area. We wonder if we're going to approach the beach as he continues to drive. And as you mentioned, I mean, such different communities that are all very different in their makeup, their demographic makeup, and in what the communities are all about, from Huntington Beach to Southgate to Bellflower to Long Beach to Fountain Valley to Stanton to Anaheim. This guy has been all over Southern California.
He is. He's in the southern part of the region, and he has probably no idea where he's going. He just finds an open path. and takes that path. But as he travels through these different communities, he's picking up officers from all these communities, and every jurisdiction has police protection. So people are watching this. The police are aware. You've got that lead unit. That lead unit will maintain control until they can no longer maintain control if they've got problems. You got secondary units. You got other units that are there. But paramount is to have that air unit, and the Sheriff's Department has the air unit. A lot of those small jurisdictions do not have air units. LAPD has a number. Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, they all have air units. Orange County has some air units, but you don't have every single police department with an air unit, which is extremely expensive. But fortunately, the Sheriff's Department does share within the county of Los Angeles with those departments that don't have air operations.
Yeah.
And thank goodness in this particular case.
We're now
without
pulling
that
into
air
what looks like a drive-through for a Wiener Schnitzel.
Great.
And see if he's able to turn that and make a turn out of there. We have seen at several points him drive into what look like private parking lots and use that as a way to maneuver out of the situation.
As soon as he finds traffic, he tries to avoid that, and that's what's happening here. He finds traffic, so he finds another
Now
avenue
a U-turn, another
escape.
wild U-turn, going back through the streets, and the police stay right on him.
So our last known main intersection was Ellis Avenue and Beach Boulevard in Huntington Beach. Approaching this new intersection here, he stops to let the traffic go by. He's now going to go through, as we've seen him do countless times. Another near miss. In the 90 minutes that we've been covering this pursuit that started in Southgate, here he looks like he's stopping in the middle of the street.
Oh, pick him back up. That window's down. And he's gesturing at the police? Is he gesturing at the choppers? Who is he gesturing at?
So this is Talbert Avenue and Beach Boulevard now.
Interesting, his gestures and
it looks like his window's back up, though.
And those windows, by the way, having windows that are that tinted, that's illegal, right?
Yes.
Well, you can't have the front, the driver, the passenger, they can't be tinted. Windows to the rear, the side windows to the rear, and the rear window you can tint, but those other windows, it's illegal to tint those. I noticed that window was down, now it's up again. So very bizarre. But no, tinted windows, for the most part, the driver, passenger, and the windshield, those are illegal to tint. Now, some states permit it. California does not permit it. And it's very hazardous for an officer to approach a vehicle with tinted windows. You can't see inside that vehicle. It depends on how dark the tint is. But the fact is, if you can't see the hands of the individual driving the passengers, that intensifies the hazard to the police officer as they approach a vehicle. This particular case, we know the suspect's wanted. We know he's wanted for felonies. We know he's wanted for domestic violence. So he's racking up the felony charges one by one. So he'll be booked and have a very, very high bail once they take him into custody, and hopefully that'll happen soon as we see him driving, not in a fast manner at this particular moment, but those units are obviously settling in. The watch commanders are aware. I'm sure the captains of these small cities, the chiefs are aware. You have a parade of police cars following. If he decides to jump out, there'll be a number of officers, including K-9, that'll take him into custody. So there's an army of officers there ready to take him into custody in a safe, cautious manner and take him to custody, take him to jail, and render aid to the victim, and that's the female victim who's the passenger in the right front seat.
So Gothard Street and Slater Avenue, we know that this is a domestic violence suspect in this pursuit for the last 90 minutes. You can see his hand out, yes, gesturing again. What we don't know, obviously we know that this guy is very dangerous, but Dennis, what we don't know, and you've brought this up, is he armed?
Right, and we don't know. We'll know once he's stopped. Does he have a weapon? It's very possible. Did he kidnap this lady? Is it his domestic partner? Is it his wife? There's obviously a lady in the car, domestic violence. There's a variety of factors that are possible, a variety. And we won't know until that car is stopped and he's taken into custody and free the victim. And I'm sure she's very, very concerned for her safety and fearful. Probably of comfort is to know that the police are following, that the police are there to help her. And once this comes to an end, that's exactly what they'll do. But until that point, I'm sure she's in great fear. And seeing his driving pattern, to imagine you're in the front seat and this individual's driving in this wild, dangerous fashion, you're going to brace yourself because there's speculation. Why were her feet up on the dashboard? Why was she holding on to the roof? Well, just imagine individuals driving in a manner that is very unsafe. You're concerned for your safety, and you want to brace yourself. Hopefully she's wearing her seatbelt. But, again, the concern for this, and people say, well, why don't they just go into a tracking mode? We've been in this for over an hour and 90 minutes. Why don't we just go to tracking mode? We go into tracking mode, we lose the suspect, we lose the car, and God forbid something happens to her. And then who are you going to complain about? You were watching. Why'd you let it go?
He's now pulling into another parking lot here, and he makes his way through that parking lot successfully, down an alleyway here. Well, he will make a left or right onto this side street in Huntington Beach, and he's making a left.
By so many homes, I mean, you think at this point, all the different communities in our market that have now been a part of this gets around that van right there and keeps on moving. All the different communities that have now heard the sirens or seen the choppers move through their communities throughout Orange County and Los Angeles County now. As we continue this pursuit in Orange County, and the guy just keeps on driving. I mean, it is scary, and so many of us have experienced it, where you're minding your own business, and then all of a sudden you see a pursuit coming at you, and you really don't know what to do.
Well, the best thing to do is get out of the way. You don't want to damage your car. You don't want to have any damage, injury to you. You want to get out of the way. The bottom line is don't play hero and try and get involved and stop. Again, if this individual has a weapon, if he's got a gun and can shoot you, all kinds of possibilities. So the bottom line is to get out of the way, let the police do what they need to do, what they're trained to do. But it's not worth your life or getting injured or getting shot or getting run over for that fact, or having your car damaged because you want to interfere while the police are trained to do the job. And they will do the job. It's just going to take a long time because this individual is not compliant. He knows what he's doing, trying to escape, and we don't want him to escape, and there's a concern about her safety as well as the pursuit. So don't play hero. Just avoid this. Stay out of the way. If they're coming down your street, don't jump out in front of the car and play hero because it's likely you'll get run over by the suspect. It's not worth it. He'll get apprehended eventually, and it's just going to take some time. Again, we got the air unit, we got ground units, and they will maintain this. They're not going to give up. It's not like a barricaded suspect where they're confined. This individual is not confined. This individual can go anywhere he wants, and that's exactly what he's doing, from one county to the other, one city to the other, and probably doesn't know these areas, just driving aimlessly, trying to find to kind of lose the police. Well, if he looks out that window and looks up in the sky, there's a big helicopter overhead, and that helicopter is not going anywhere, in addition to all the news choppers that are overhead. We've got Sky Fox over. Sky Fox communicates with the law enforcement authorities, with the air units. They all communicate together. So if we need assistance, there's assistance. If we need another set of eyes, there's another set of eyes. So it's well coordinated. Sky Fox, the pilot, they know what they're doing. They've done this many, many times. You've got a number of news operations taking place along with law enforcement operations. So normally you'll have one police chopper and a number of media outlets. And when you see that caravan in the sky, there's something big going on, either a presidential motorcade or, in this particular case, suspect wanted for domestic violence trying to flee the authorities.
Well, it's not a presidential motorcade because there's a TFR when there's a presidential motorcade.
That's exactly correct.
You'll never see that for a presidential motorcade.
Says the host of our political show, the issue is. Yes.
Yes. We can't fly the chopper. You'll never see an aerial shot of a presidential motorcade.
No, you won't. You won't.
But every other motorcade, or maybe a Kardashian or something.
Right,
so
exactly.
here, so we continue to follow this pursuit. A serious suspect here, a domestic violence suspect, now on to about an hour and a half that we've been following this pursuit at this point. And at this point, you do start to wonder about fuel for this car.
Yes, exactly. We know what happened to Sky Fox. Sky Fox had to get fuel. The chopper, everything has fuel. So you've got to refuel, and he hasn't done that yet. So we don't know if it was a half a tank, a full tank. Car probably gets 35, maybe 30, 35 miles per gallon. It's a Honda, and he hasn't been driving at excessive speed, so maybe he's getting 30 miles per gallon. So
looks like his hands out of the window again, gesturing as he has been doing multiple times.
Yes, he has. But as this continues, people settle back. The officers in the car, they settle back. They just, they're broadcasting the location. Everybody's calmed down after this length of time. It's become very routine going through this intersection. We've got this intersection blocked. And what they're waiting for is if he bails from the car, they have sufficient units, and I'm sure there's a canine in that pursuit that will then take him into custody as quickly as possible. So he's just racking up the charge one by one, all the illegal actions he's making. And again, the stations are tape recording this, the police stations, the different jurisdictions. So I'm sure the watch commander's sitting back watching this as it goes by, make sure everything's
Dennis,
safe.
here we go. We're going on to the freeway again.
This is the 22 freeway from Beach Boulevard.
And the Chippies were anticipated to take over at one point. They may still be in the vicinity. They were going to take it over, then he got off the freeway. He was on for a period of time. So we'll see if that takes place. Once they get in, they normally don't relinquish the pursuit. These other agencies will continue.
Westbound 22 freeway from Beach Boulevard in Huntington Beach. We have the wider shot here, so you're seeing multiple units tracking him now as he picks up speed, of course, on the freeway where traffic doesn't seem to be too much of a problem just yet now as we approach the 7 o'clock hour on this Wednesday evening. It is pretty incredible that we picked this pursuit up about 5:25 during the Fox 11 News at 5 o'clock this evening. We stuck with it until our chopper ran out of fuel. Just after 6 o'clock this evening, we were able to get back on the air after refueling about 6:25 this evening. So now here we are again now, as I said, approaching 7 p.m. and westbound 22 looks pretty good for Wednesday night. Not a lot of traffic.
And you wonder...
You're absolutely right. You're right about that.
And you wonder about the fuel also for the police cars, because they've been driving pretty, with him every step of the way. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of them, and they can replace them. But it seems like a lot of cars have been going. And now is that Highway Patrol that's now joining in?
I didn't see that, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do. I'm sure they've been monitoring and waiting for the freeway activity to take over the pursuit. That might be.
Yeah, so that just a confirmation of that is what I just suspected. California Highway Patrol has now taken over this pursuit. As Dennis mentioned earlier on in our broadcast, they are the agency that probably has the most consistent training when it comes to pursuits, probably have the most background in that, and they are now taking the lead on this as we are on the freeway, which is, of course, their jurisdiction. We want to give everybody an update that may just be joining us. You are watching KTTV, Fox 11 Los Angeles. This is the time when TMZ is usually on the air, but instead we are on the air with live breaking news coverage of a pursuit. I'm Alex Michelson with Marla Tejas, Dennis Zine, and Marla, we're looking at a domestic violence suspect here.
And he's not alone. He has a female passenger in that four-door sedan with him. This started about 5:25 roughly in the Southgate area. We've seen him evade officers for more than 90 minutes now, going, as I said, started in Southgate, going through Bellflower, Long Beach, Norwalk, Garden Grove, Anaheim, Huntington Beach last, getting down the 22 westbound here, where it's been pretty good in terms of traffic for him, and then also for the unsuspecting drivers who don't realize that a pursuit is underway. And this guy, Dennis, we know he's dangerous, wanted for a domestic violence attack, and we've seen him violently acting within this pursuit time, but we don't know if he's armed.
Correct. Well, we know that we've seen from the air unit view, we've seen him striking the female passenger. We do not know the relationship. The ground units may know that by now from the investigation that they're following up on the vehicle and the individual and whatever prompt initiated the call. So they're determining that. But what we have seen, and our viewers have seen, him striking her within that car. So we know the initial situation was domestic violence. Obviously, he's not stopping. He's not letting her out of the vehicle. There's obviously concern for her safety. So, again, people will ask, why don't you terminate this pursuit, go into a tracking mode? Because we need to rescue that lady who's a victim of domestic violence that we've personally seen. So the concern is for her safety. So this will continue. Now the CHP, the lead agency, the local jurisdictions will follow. But the CHP is well prepared for this, so they've got a number of units that will be joining this pursuit. The local agencies will also participate. So there'll be an entire caravan of police vehicles. Some of the agencies will return, maybe one or two units involved in the pursuit, but there'll be sufficient units, including canines, once this vehicle comes to a stop, to take the suspect into custody and to rescue the female passenger, who's obviously very, very concerned about her safety, especially after this 90-minute fleeing from the police.
So how does the strategy change from surface streets to now northbound 405 going, well, not exceeding the speed limit here at 50 miles per hour? Oh, it looks like he was going to get off maybe at Seal Beach Boulevard, but no, staying on northbound 405 here. So how does strategy change for CHP officers?
Well, they're very aggressive when it comes to pursuits. My experience with over 50 years of LAPD experience, CHP is very aggressive in pursuits. They want to bring it to an end to avoid any kind of collision, any kind of injury, any kind of damage. They're very aggressive. They want to put this to an end quickly. So they will continue with this as long as possible. And again, we've got a unit. CHP has their unit. I don't know if the air units and the CHP is over this yet, but we know that the Sheriff's Department has been involved in it. So the CHP will do what they need to do to bring it to an end. There's, I believe, more than one CHP unit. And they've been preparing for this because they knew it was on the freeway, on and off the freeway. So now you'll see them maintain jurisdiction on this. And again, the CHP can go anywhere in the state of California, all roads, all codes. So you'll see them hopefully bringing this to an end as quickly as possible. Very aggressive in their pursuit techniques.
And the CHP from Santa Fe Springs just tweeted to me saying hopefully we'll be able to end this pursuit safely and soon. So that would give you an indication that they may be involved with this as well. We thank them for being in contact with us. We thank all of our viewers who are joining us on our Fox 11 Facebook page from around the world as well, and on our Fox 11 LA app, as well as joining us live on TV as we continue to follow this domestic violence suspect pursuit. Making his way northbound 605 just from the 405 there. Again, traffic isn't a problem. He looks like he's got this wide open at this point. It's just a few minutes past 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. It looks like now his... am I seeing his hand out the window, which we've seen multiple times, him gesturing maybe to law enforcement, or is it? And her hand maybe out there, maybe that's just the reflection. It's hard. It's hard to really tell. Plus, those windows, of course, as we pointed out, are illegally tinted on the driver's side. Anyway, going 70 miles per hour. This is 605 northbound, just passing the Catella Avenue exit in Los Alamitos. It looks like the window is closed at this point. Yes, yes. Oh, and compliments to Sky Fox that's overhead that's following this for a long period of time. Other than the fuel they had to pick up, they've been on this from the beginning. So obviously great work by the crew up above watching and giving us that view that we can see here on the ground. So this car continues to move on. Earlier when it went through a fence, which happened maybe an hour and 15 minutes ago, it looked like it may have sustained some damage on the left side of the vehicle, but it continues to move pretty well, now going close to 70 miles an hour on the 605 freeway in Long Beach. Well, we know that there's damage to the fender, the left front fender, and that, I believe, was from when he went through the fence, collided with the fence and just tore the fence off. And I think that's what caught on that left front side and caused damage to that car. We don't know if it's his car or if it's a stolen car. Again, all those questions will be answered once this comes to an end. So we are now back in L.A. County. We started in L.A. County, drove down to Orange County. Now we're moving back in the direction that this whole thing started in Long Beach on the 605 heading north. Which makes you wonder if he's heading back to Southgate, where this all started just after about 5:25 tonight. 5:25 till now, a little after 7 o'clock. Been a long time. A long time, and a long time also for, you would imagine, those sort of heated tempers. That we've seen the guy throughout an hour, multiple times, what looked like screaming at the woman in the front, yes, and in the middle of an argument. And you know, the human body can only kind of sustain that sort of rage for so long. You wonder, from a physiological perspective, how this guy is doing this, between yelling at that woman and at the same time driving so wildly and evading a whole lot of stuff in the process as well. And there may be an intoxicant. He may be under the influence of alcohol and or drugs. He may have taken drugs. He may be wired because of that. So a lot of possibilities. I'm sure he'll get tested once he's apprehended. Is under the influence as well as everything else. I mean, his driving pattern right now, he's staying within the lane.
He's only, 67, 68, almost 70 miles per hour. He's staying within that lane. He's not weaving, straddling the lane. So he may not be intoxicated, or he may be intoxicated. Now we see him over the lane. So there's a possibility of under the influence condition, everything else.
And Dennis, is there a reason why in the almost 2 hours that we've been covering this that we haven't learned a lot about the suspect himself? You know, we obviously have a license plate, or not us per se, but authorities do. So why are we not learning more about the suspect and what he's capable of?
We in the civilian population do not know, but the authorities do know. They've run the plate. They've got information on the registered owner. They've got information on the initial call. Was it observation by the officer? Was there a 911 call that went through? The lead agency that started this will have all that information. So they're already doing that. They know who owns the car. They may have contacted this individual, may own the car. So a lot of that's being done by units at the station. So while we don't know at this particular time, they do follow up as soon as they can. So clearly they know the license plate. They've run that plate. They've got the RO. Are there any warrants, any wants on that particular vehicle? Have they contacted the registered owner? Was it a stolen car? Is this the owner of the car? Is this a domestic live-in situation? So they're doing a preliminary investigation as this pursuit continues. So they'll have an idea when they take him into custody. Is he an ex-con? Does he have weapons? Does he carry weapons? Has he been arrested for this, that, or the other? They're going to find this out and alert the ground unit so they'll know. Use extreme caution. Armed suspect, carries a weapon, this and that and the other. So until that point, we're not going to know as a general public. But believe me, the law enforcement is already doing that research.
And we are now in I just want to mention, we're now in the community of Cerritos, not far from the Cerritos Auto Square on the 605. We also drove through the community of Lakewood as well.
Now, earlier, Dennis, you said that CHP tends to be a little bit more aggressive when they deal with pursuit suspects like this. So have you seen them act more aggressively than Southgate Police or the various city offices? Not yet. Not yet. But again, they may be using extreme caution because of the passenger, the female passenger, the domestic violence victim. They may be using caution because of that. When it's the driver and he's wanted for various charges and he's been arrested, he's done time, they may have all that information. There's a concern what threats he made, if they have threats against that victim, the female victim, all the situation that's come about, they're going to have communication from the other agencies. So right now, just a pursuit at 70-plus miles per hour. He's driving, traffic's light, they're behind, they're following at a safe distance. They're not employing any unusual technique at this particular time. Again, they are fresh to this pursuit. The units that have been pursuing all this time for an hour and a half, there's fatigue that sets in. Now you have fresh units that are in pursuit to California Patrol. So a different view, a different perspective. They're not being aggressive with him. They're giving him the space. They got air unit overhead, giving the information on the location. Again, he's traveling at 70 miles an hour on a lightly traveled freeway at this particular time. 605 so
they're
northbound.
not very aggressive.
Now in Norwalk.
And as we see the traffic, the later the hour, the less traffic. So he's on a freeway that does not have a lot of traffic. And that's why he's continuing at that speed in the fast lane of traffic. He's in the, he's in the carpool. I think he's in the number one lane, not the carpool. I think he's in the number one lane. Yeah, the carpool lane's to the left, so he's in the number one lane.
He has really lucked out with the lack of traffic through so many different communities. Likely, as you mentioned, Dennis, driving sort of randomly wherever he goes, that he really has not run into a ton of traffic in the middle of rush hour through so many Southern California communities.
Well, making a move here, though, off the 605, correct?
There we go. That unit is right behind him. We're getting moving to the right.
And it appears that we're now moving off of the freeway in the city of Norwalk. Or is this a connector to another freeway? That's what we're going to have to see here.
Our technology shows 605 North Foster Road and Barron's Avenue in Norwalk. Again, wide open. To your point, Alex, there's no traffic there. And you see the trailing CHP officers right behind him.
Looks like he may be transitioning to another freeway.
It looks like a transition.
Yeah, so we think that he'd now be transitioning onto the 105 freeway. As we continue to follow him now, driving at about 45 miles an hour, sort of 38, pretty slow actually for a freeway as he now transitions onto another freeway that looks fairly wide open when it comes to the traffic at 7:12 in the evening now. Sunset, that may impact somebody's view a little bit as they drive on this freeway.
Now, if he's going westbound, he'll end up at LAX.
We're now in Downey, is where this driver is at the current moment.
And you are correct, Dennis. It is westbound 105.
So westbound 105 will take you over to LAX, which will be flight restriction for Skyfox as they approach. But then he can do the 405, the 110. There's other options that this driver will have suspect along the way.
Yes.
But again, the traffic is extremely light.
And as we know, when you get around LAX, no matter what the time, no matter what the day, traffic is never extremely light. So that is one place where you could run into some congestion at this hour.
That's also the one place where our helicopter or choppers in general have to back off because of the TFR.
Yeah, meaning a total flight restriction. This guy continues to. Is there ever a thought of a pit maneuver on the freeway, or is that just deemed so dangerous that it's sort of out of the picture?
It's seldom used on a freeway. Again, the speed is too fast, and then you got a passenger who's a victim. So ultimate caution, you don't want to harm that victim any more than she's already been harmed by his actions and his activity striking her, etc. So it's unlikely they would do a pit maneuver or anything other than him running out of gas. So he bails out of the car. But doing spike strip, pit maneuver, you don't see that happening when you've got a victim, and that's the concern. If it was just one individual, the driver driving this manner, they may try something if the speed were slower, but at this particular speed, they're not going to do that. 'Cause if you do a spike strip at this speed, the car may flip. You may have some serious problems. So you've got to have a slower speed in order to do it successfully without causing damage. You don't want to flip the car and cause more damage, more harm. And if you do the pit, the spike, this is not ideal condition for that.
Dennis, personally, what do you make of this pursuit? You've covered so many. And the fact that it's been going on for this long and he's been able to evade officers for this long, and the fact that there is a female domestic violence suspect inside this vehicle. Are you surprised that it's gone on this long?
Well, I'm surprised that it hasn't come to a stop by his action or on the surface street doing something. But again, most of the time when you've got a suspect, you don't have a domestic violence victim with that suspect. If it's just a suspect, you want to bring that to an end as quickly as possible. But you've got the concern about safety and caution for that female victim. That female victim, she may be pregnant. We don't know. There's so many possibilities that you can come up with. You don't want to create an issue that could harm her if she's pregnant. All those factors come into play. So you've got to use extreme caution. You want to take them into custody in a safe manner. These officers have a lot on their minds, a lot of concern. They're wearing body cams for the most part. I don't think the CHP has gone to it yet, but everything will be recorded. So you want to make sure that you do everything in a reasonable, proper fashion, because people are going to second guess. Administration is going to second guess. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Well, because ultimately concerned about the safety of the passenger. We want to make sure we can rescue her. We don't want to harm her. The whole issue is to rescue that lady. That lady is a victim, and you got to rescue her. In addition to apprehending the suspect, taking him into custody. So you've got two factors that come into play, and ultimately the police are there to rescue people and to save people and to protect people. So you don't want to do something that's going to cause harm, undue harm to the lady.
Now, some congestion now, westbound 105 in the Linwood area, as we've seen him do before when he hit congestion on the freeway. He's used the shoulder to get by the drivers there, westbound 105. And it's, is he going to take this off-ramp here?
He's got to make a decision on which way to go here.
Mm-hmm.
We're now in
Linwood.
Linwood.
He'll do everything. Do everything to avoid that traffic, everything he can to avoid.
Now driving on the near the shoulder there and continuing to drive on. We are in Linwood. We were in Paramount just a moment ago. As we're driving, you can see his speeds are really slowing down as he hits finally some of the congestion that you would usually see in the evening
on so many Southern California freeways. You have to wonder what the conversation has been like between this suspect and this victim sitting in the front seat, what exactly he was saying to her when he was clearly seemed to be yelling at her, and what is going through her mind as this pursuit now stretches past an hour and a half.
Well, I think she just wants to be rescued and get away from this individual. And when he was flailing his arms in her motion, in her direction, you know, it was probably striking the lady, which was obviously a concern for her safety. So they both have concerns, obviously. Both of them have concerns. And the police have a concern about ending this peacefully.
We're getting a good look at him now as we get a tight shot here. His window's down. He's putting his hand out, gesturing. I don't know if he's waving, what he's trying to do with authorities. And now the window's back up.
What is that about? This weird thing where he puts the window down, makes some sort of motion, and then puts it back up. We've seen that multiple times now.
Well, it's unusual to do, but he may be making a gesture toward the police, toward the Highway Patrol, toward law enforcement. That might be the case. Not a positive gesture, but that might be the issue.
Yeah.
Gesturing toward them. Because obviously he doesn't care. He's disregarding everything that is reasonable and prudent, including pulling over and stopping when you got vehicles, emergency vehicles behind you with the red light and siren.
So off the 105 Fernwood Avenue in Linwood, it's hard to get a look at the scenery here just because it's such a tight shot, but he's approaching the intersection, the off-ramp where it is backed up. So we've seen this before, and he snakes his way through every time.
There are units that are ready for him, and it looks like they're going to get a little more aggressive in pursuing him.
Will they use a pit maneuver here? Do they have the room here? It looks like a pretty narrow street, but it looks like these officers are acting more aggressively than we have seen.
There we go.
Approaching another intersection here, and he's getting some distance from the police once again. It looked like it was Highway Patrol that was waiting right off the freeway, ready for him. And now we're going back into another drive-through. This looks like this may be a McDonald's drive-through, going against the traffic, against the way of the drive-through, and using that as a buffer to try to get away from police. And now a U-turn, going against traffic in the wrong direction and through another intersection. This seems to be one of his MOs, and he's used it fairly successfully, not to completely get away from police, obviously, but to get some distance from police, to drive through these drive-through. We saw one earlier at a Wiener Schnitzel. We've seen a few different parking lots be used for that purpose.
Well, we know that CHP officer was pre-deployed to that off-ramp to take over that and maybe bring it to an end. But, again, we're still following now an hour and a half into this.
No, in fact, I'm just going to point this out. We're almost to 2 hours into this because we went on the air about 5:25 with this pursuit during the Fox 11 5 o'clock news.
And it started around 5 o'clock?
About 5:25 is when we picked it up, so it started even before that. So, yes, we're officially, I would say, 2 hours. I think it's safe to say 2 hours into this pursuit that started in Southgate.
Right. And now we're near LAX, I understand?
This is still the Linwood area. Last major intersection was Imperial Highway and Long Beach Boulevard.
And the streets here are pretty narrow, which would make the possibility of doing some sort of pit maneuver, you would think, almost impossible because of all the cars that are parked nearby.
Right.
And so they just sort of have to keep going and keep trailing this guy. Not a whole lot of options for police, even though those the CHP officers are getting pretty close behind him.
Right, right. Well, they want to bring it to an end, but they got obviously concerned about her safety, the passenger, as well as other people in that particular vicinity. So they're close behind. The speed is not excessive, just continuing like a parade on these different streets, these different communities in Southern California. This is one of the longest we've been on. And the concern on this, obviously, is you've got a victim that's the passenger in the right front seat. And they want to rescue her from this individual and get them away from each other as quickly as possible.
So why,
So
when we're on this road here and he's not driving fast or erratically, so why isn't a pit maneuver now? Why don't they gain speed and traction and
They could. I don't want to second guess them. The concern maybe be for the passenger. If it was just him, I'm sure they would do that. This would be an ideal location because you've got a clear roadway. Put that car out of service, but it might be because of the victim and their supervisors that are giving advice along the way. Might be the concern about her safety, and that pit maneuver they may think is just too hazardous. They may do a spike strip. This would be a location they could deploy a spike strip, bring it to an end that way at slow speed. The spike strip works very well, popping those tires. Sometimes they drive on flat tires and they go down the rim, and then a car comes to a stop. Excuse me, but I think that what we see happening is CHP, now they're on the surface street following. They're not going to relinquish this. They'll continue with this and with the other agencies following and assisting.
gosh, we all feel so for the victim inside, this female passenger who's enduring everything else that's going on, and he can only be getting more and more irate, I would suspect, as this pursuit goes on, because he knows that it's not going to be long. Eventually, he will be taken into custody.
That's exactly it. And all this will be played back. They're recording it. They'll play it back. And he wants to go to court and plead not guilty and see what the judge or jury says about this with the other charges that will be filed against this individual, who I would imagine has been a victim of the criminal justice system in the past.
Yeah, what we don't know is who this woman is, what is the nature of their relationship, how she ended up in the car in the first place, what is being said between them. I mean, there are so many questions about all of that, which, you know, we hope to have answered after, hopefully, this comes to a safe conclusion, and she is taken away from this situation safely.
And one of those, we do want to replay one of those really tense moments, and here it is on what happened earlier in the last hour when he just ran through a park and he plows through a fence there. He was able to get away. We thought that was going to come to an end then because he was at what we thought was a dead end, but then he made his way through the park, and there were plenty of people out enjoying the Wednesday evening there in this particular park. And he was able to get right back on the surface streets, and here we are another hour later, and now still in the Linwood area.
Well, it is frustrating for the officers. It's frustrating for the general public. And the public looks at this and says the time, the cost, the energy being expended on this one individual. But again, you've got a female who's a victim of domestic violence. That cannot be ignored. That's of paramount significance and importance. And protect and serve, that means rescue this lady from this suspect and bring her to safety and incarcerate the individual in a professional manner. That's what they're paid to do. That's what they're going to do ultimately.
Yeah, the question is, of course, how does this end, which is why so many people watch Pursuits. That is the big question. So, and a door just opened up. The door on the passenger side opened up for a moment. We've seen that happen before. It looks like it closed again, and the woman did not get out of the car. The car now slowing down here, possibly because of traffic. So in about a minute, we are going to be going off the air on TV to bring you back to regularly scheduled programming. But if you're interested in continuing,
door opening again, and you wonder if she's going to jump out, you can see he's got a hold on her.
Oh no! Wow! He's grabbing her, preventing her from leaving the vehicle.
Her legs are still up there, it looks like, on the dashboard, as we've seen it before, and she's just been trying to protect herself. We've seen that multiple times.
Oh, this is dangerous now.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, he's not letting her go.
This is perhaps the most dangerous moment of the pursuit that we have seen so far. So we want to let you know that
we're going to pick up our coverage on our Fox 11 Facebook page, so please join us there as we've been.
Yeah, Fox 11 Los Angeles is the Facebook page, and foxla.com/live as well. We have live coverage there.
All right, that's going to conclude our coverage. We will return you to regularly scheduled programming as this pursuit continues on in Linwood. We appreciate you taking the time to stick with Fox 11 for the latest on this pursuit that started more than 2 hours ago in the Southgate area. Please join us on Facebook.
And we will see you for more TV tonight at 10 o'clock.
This has been a Fox 11 News.
Southern California. Are we up here on the Facebook page? I'm Christine Devine, joining Alex Michelson. Alex and Marla just got off the Fox 11 News in what may be the longest pursuit we've seen in a long time.
It's amazing that this car is still going. We're now more than 2 hours into this pursuit. If you're
You looking for our coverage here on the Facebook Live? Yes. Alex and Marla have just wrapped things up on Fox 11 after joining this pursuit during the 5 o'clock newscast. I was out at an event and made my way here to LA, so I'll be taking over for Marla. Alex, you're going to have to bring me up to speed just a little bit, because I came into set and you were on this pursuit talking about a driver and a passenger who might be the victim of domestic violence.
Yeah, a very dramatic moment just happened a few minutes ago. There is a female passenger who we believe to be a domestic violence victim, and it appeared that she opened up the door, which was not the first time that she's opened up the door, and was trying to get out of the car, and it appeared that that suspect was holding her back, physically making sure that she did not get out of the car, which is a scary situation. Throughout this pursuit over the last 2 hours, we have seen this suspect screaming at this woman. We've seen some what appeared to be some physical violence during this, and now so you have to feel for this woman. What we don't know, Christine, is we do not know the relationship between this suspect and this passenger. We don't know how she ended up in this car in the first place. So, and we don't know the name of the suspect.
Let me ask you this question. So you've been saying or posting that it's a possible domestic violence situation.
Yes.
Where did that information come from?
We heard that from law enforcement sources.
Okay, so we don't know
now
the
we see her.
relationship.
Okay, so we see this suspect, this passenger right now.
Yeah.
You can see her. It looks
Windows
like she's
down.
like laying down. At some points earlier, she was bracing herself. Her
with her arms out,
legs
stretched
are
out.
up. It looks like she may be in shorts. So the part of the reason we believe that officers are so hesitant to do a pit maneuver or to do a spike strip, and we've seen neither even attempted in this situation, is because of that female passenger and concern for her safety and questions about what is happening with her.
All right, so during your coverage, since you've been on covering this since about 5:30, I'm joining you here late on this coverage of this pursuit. Do you know anything? Has anything been released about the suspect?
No.
Age, Nothing. No insight on the
I mean, we
suspect.
saw a close-up shot of him that looked like he was perhaps balding, looked like a middle-aged man from the tight shot that we got of him earlier. Looked like a middle-aged white man is what I could see, but, we're looking at it from, thousands of feet above in the air. Whoa, okay. So we got a pedestrian who was crossing the street in the middle of all this. Can you imagine crossing the street and seeing all that? It looked like our suspect just went out of his way to avoid that pedestrian and now continues to drive on. So the wildest moment of this pursuit, Christine, and for those of us just joining us on our Facebook page right now, was... Well, the first wildest was him grabbing her as she tried to get out of the car, but the earlier moment that was the most dramatic was he ended up in a situation right by a fence where it looked like this pursuit was going to end, and then the suspect made the decision to just drive through the fence, taking the whole fence down, and then making a right turn into a park where a bunch of people were enjoying their Wednesday evening and got away that way. Earlier, he also was driving on the sidewalk at some points near it looked like trees and other things and was able to avoid them. I mean, the guy deserves some credit for his ability to drive in all of these situations.
Police, obviously, CHP, they're putting the pressure on, making sure that driver knows they are right there behind him. We've seen a number of times in pursuits where a passenger bails from the vehicle. So it's a different scenario here where you say the driver...
Look how close he's getting.
Yeah,
this looks like we may see a pit maneuver here, or this is the closest that we've seen officers get. CHP really getting close. It looks like they have some open road here. Maybe they're going to try it.
Well, as I was saying, we've seen passengers bail in these pursuits from time to time, and you're saying this driver actually tried to prevent her from exiting? That's what it looked like?
Yes, it looked like she was trying to she opened up the door and physically was trying to get out, and then it looked like he was physically holding her back.
One of our viewers, we see your comments coming in here on Facebook. We appreciate you staying with us during this pursuit. One person saying, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, praying for her. So again, we don't know the relationship between the two. We don't know that much about the suspect or the passenger, but you say all along has there been this concern for this passenger?
Yes, since the beginning. That was the initial call, was some sort of domestic incident, and from what we've seen ourselves, it appears that there is a toxic relationship happening within that car, and certainly. We're now in Vernon, the community, the small city of Vernon is where we are now. We have been through so many Southern California communities throughout Los Angeles and Orange County. Some of those communities that we've driven through in this pursuit include Southgate, Norwalk, Huntington Beach, Anaheim, Stanton, Lakewood, Paramount. We have been all over the map in the course of the last 2 hours plus of this pursuit.
And watching just a bit of your coverage, Alex, this pursuit has been on the freeway.
Multiple freeways. We were on the 605, we were on the 405, we were on the 22, we were on the 105, as well as mostly on surface streets. That's been the majority of the time, but there have been several different stops on Southern California freeways. The guy drove down south to Orange County and then drove back up north into LA County.
Tiffany, thank you for your comment. I appreciate you joining us. Somebody's saying, I hope he doesn't crash the car. You know, that's another concern here. Right now, this road is wide open. You can see not a lot of traffic, but this has been during rush hour, where it's much heavier. Police, they're obviously staying right there on the tail of that vehicle, sending the message, this driver is not getting away. This pursuit's not going to end. But look at the way he's driving there. Crossing lines, green light there at least, but you've had passengers in crosswalks actually, making this even more dangerous, and law enforcement there staying right there.
And some of our viewers typing in, let's end this already. Let's pit him, and that might happen here. That was our first attempt at a pit maneuver. He did not make contact. Will there be a second attempt at a pit maneuver as we now enter onto the freeway?
No, not on the ramp here. That would be too dangerous. Too dangerous a move on a spot like this.
That was the first.
Now onto a freeway.
That was the first attempt at a pit maneuver that we have seen. Our police specialist Dennis Zine earlier saying that there was concern about the safety of that female passenger, but that was clearly law enforcement getting a little more aggressive in their attempt to finally end this pursuit after more than 2 hours.
Now, obviously, on a freeway, given the speeds, given the other traffic, there would not be an attempt at a pursuit on a freeway. Alex, let me ask you this. Some of our viewers are writing in here that they thought perhaps it looked like the driver was trying to get her out of the car and she was not moving, not trying to go. I don't know if you can tell. It's hard perspective.
It's hard to tell, and it was all happening live, but from what it looked like to me, it looked like she was trying to get out of the car and that he was holding her back, and then he shut the door. And given the fact that we know this is a domestic violence incident, we know that he's been screaming at her throughout this situation, that would make more sense, wouldn't it, that she was trying to get away and he stopped her from doing it versus the other way around.
So it looks like getting off of one freeway and onto another freeway. Alex, does it seem to you this driver's going in an area that seems to be a greater circle?
No.
No.
I mean, a lot of times we'll see in those pursuits where somebody just hangs out, say, I'm from Agora Hills, where I grew up, and I really know the streets of Agora Hills, so I'm going to drive around Agora Hills for an hour. That has not been the case. This driver has been everywhere, all different communities with all different backgrounds. This does not seem to be any rhyme or reason on sort of where this guy is going. He's just going anywhere he can go to try to create some distance between the officers and himself.
One of our viewers here on the chat, I think it was Jeff, saying that the helicopter is going to need fuel. If this is an LAPD chopper flying overhead, they have more than one. Whatever support helicopters they're using, Sheriff's Department, whatever it is, they have more than one that can fly this.
Well,
News choppers, though, we might have to refuel.
Well, we actually stopped. We had to go off the air for about 15 minutes as our chopper went and refueled around 6:15, so we hopefully have enough fuel to keep us going for a good amount of time now as we continue to follow this pursuit. And that fuel question is another question about the police as well, but now we have the CHP that are pursuing. Originally it was Southgate that was leading the way, but now CHP leading the way. One of the things this guy has done repeatedly is try to go on the shoulder or go to areas where there is not a lot of traffic. I mean, it's been an amazing night for not a lot of rush hour traffic in Southern California.
Southbound 5 here, I got to tell you, I came up from an event in Orange County and I was in rush hour thinking this is going to take me 2.5 hours getting off the freeway here. Actually, I had fairly smooth sailing from Costa Mesa coming up to LA.
Did you see any of the choppers ever? Did you ever?
I did not.
No. So now we're driving on the wrong side of the road as we continue into yet another Southern California community.
Lorraine asking, is this chase going down in the Guinness Book of World Records? Actually, I remember. No. Well, I remember a chase that was hours, and then the suspect stopped the vehicle on the freeway and sat there for hours.
Right.
This was a good 20 years ago, but it was one of those pursuits where that standoff then lasted. I mean, it might have been 4 or 5 hours.
And there was, and not too long ago, I remember a very long standoff that happened in like Camp Pendleton area, where a pursuit stopped there, and then sometimes that happens. Sometimes we see a barricaded suspect situation on a pursuit. We don't usually see a pursuit last this long, although we have seen some of those pursuits, especially happen late at night, like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, where they have really wide open freeways and they can just go.
Stephen saying, noting this isn't rush hour, and that explains perhaps at 7:40 why there is not much traffic.
Okay, so we're getting close. Are we going to see a pit maneuver here? The way that this guy, the CHP officer, is driving, he may be positioning himself for one based off of that activity.
All right. Noting we have many people who join us from other parts of the country, even other parts of the world, watching our coverage on these pursuits. And so, yes, it is 7:40 here in Los Angeles, not during rush hour at all. Blew through a red light there. But that's why these roads are so wide open. But I can tell you, even during rush hour, when I was driving at 5:30, coming up the 405 northbound. Oh.
A near miss there.
Move there.
That's Olympic in East LA.
We're now into the East Los Angeles community.
And this is the first you've covered this in East LA, right? First this driver's been in East LA?
First he's been in East LA, yeah. We were in South LA earlier, Southgate, but this is the first time that we've seen him in East Los Angeles. I mean, it is extraordinary, and I think part of the reason that so many people are joining us on Facebook right now is that so many communities have been impacted by this guy driving through, by hearing the lights and sirens going right by their house, and hearing all the news choppers and all of that. As we were talking about earlier, it is scary when you're just driving like these folks are, probably trying to get home or go to the grocery store, and all of a sudden this is right behind you, and you kind of don't know what to do.
So Stariel making this comment, unacceptable for any pursuit to go on for multiple hours. I think the big difference in this one is that you have a passenger. It's said to be a domestic violence issue. So if you do a pit maneuver, if you put out a spike strip, what about this passenger? What about the safety of this passenger? That, I think, is probably the big concern. That's what you talked about, if I'm right, Alex, earlier with our police specialist, Dennis Zine. That's the big concern?
That is the big concern. And another challenge for officers in this situation, the guy has put down his window, and the female passenger's put down her window too. But okay, here we go. Here we go. Are we going to see a pit maneuver here?
Driving on the wrong side of the road, this driver trying to evade police.
One of our viewers just suggesting that part of the reason he may have gotten so close is try to get a look inside the vehicle. Because the windows are tinted illegally, it is hard to find out, uh-oh, here we go. Hard for police to know exactly what's going on inside of there. This driver has been motioning out the window at some points. We're not sure if it was a middle finger or what he was doing towards the choppers and towards the officers behind. CHP definitely getting more aggressive in this pursuit and taking it to another level here.
So this pursuit has been covered here on Fox 11 on our newscast since the 5 o'clock hour. We are now coming up on 8 p.m. as we continue to bring this coverage to you on our Facebook Live. A lot of people commenting on the domestic violence issue, and a lot of people feeling they can relate to the fear of something like that or have been tied to a situation like that, and certainly that gives everyone great concern. All right, coming up here on another red light, this car, okay, like he's been doing all along, crossing yellow lines. Garfield right there, you see, and Olympic, and going through yet another red light.
We're still in East LA.
In East LA, driving on the wrong side of the road. Now we're picking up speeds dramatically as the CHP officer stays right with this guy.
Yeah, David, you make a good point about the safety of pedestrians and other civilians. With this rush hour situation being behind us now, you can see the roads have been much more open. Police have called off pursuits in the past, but also our police specialist, Dennis Zine, has said you can't let...
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
This could be... There's our pet maneuver looked into a road, didn't quite work, didn't quite take.
Perhaps the speeds they're rather fast for...
And perhaps. It looked like the differentiation between the newer street paving and the older street paving may have hurt them there. But you wonder if the CHP officer was able to damage the vehicle in any way from that. The vehicle continues to drive on. I mean, this is quite a performance from this Honda Accord, to be honest, in terms of fuel mileage and in terms of its ability to maneuver.
So a lot of you are commenting on the wide open roads at this hour. Well, keep in mind it is, coming up on 8 o'clock, but you had a lot more traffic earlier during the rush hour. Am I right, Alex, as you were covering this on both surface streets and freeways? Much more traffic earlier, right?
More, but I would certainly say this was less traffic than we would see on a normal Wednesday night in terms of rush hour. Some of that may be, the spring break nature of this week for a lot of people. Okay, so now we're making a turn. We're now in the community of Montebello, yet another community now impacted by this 2-hour-plus pursuit. This appears to be a more wide-open stretch. Could we see another attempt at a pit maneuver? The CHP officer picking up speed. Worried perhaps about that intersection right there. If you notice, the CHP officers tend to stop at the intersections to make sure they don't hit anybody while this driver just speeds through them.
Devora asking if police are perhaps trying to alert pedestrians on the street or making some kind of announcement as they go through here. I don't see a lot of pedestrians on the street at this hour. Again, coming up on 8 o'clock.
Here could be another pit maneuver. Now you can see that the driver is sensing that a pit maneuver is coming, trying to get away from it, driving on the other side of the street to get away from it.
With a median there.
Let's hope there's no other oncoming traffic. Doesn't look like it. I don't know if that was a red light camera. So in addition to everything else, he may be getting a bill in the mail. just saying that. So now we are dealing with the issue that camera brings up the issue that the sun has gone down. And so now we're going to be dealing with light issues and probably going to start getting a police light on from the chopper on that vehicle.
And also, we've seen them put out a spike strip in the past. This driver hasn't gone in what you might call a circular type of motion, an area that is repetitive, or like narrow side streets or narrow streets that they could get that spike strip out there. We're now in the Montebello area. We've been in the East LA area, been in Southgate, Norwalk. You said even Huntington Beach?
Huntington Beach, Anaheim, Stanton. I mean, this is, in terms of a pursuit, as wide an area as we've seen in some time. So many different communities that really have no connection to each other involved in this, which would lead you to believe that this guy's just kind of driving all over the place, somewhat wildly.
Thank you, Andy, for your perspective on. Okay, now we have some traffic there. Boy, he was going at a high rate of speed there past those cars that were stopped apparently at a light. That to me was a bit scary. There have been no accidents, Alex, during this whole pursuit?
As far as we can tell, no accidents, which is pretty extraordinary given the way that this guy's driving, although it does appear that he is coherent enough to recognize a pedestrian, to recognize traffic problems, and he has avoided some situations that could have been dangerous for other people. So now the police picking up speed here. Could we see another now driving by a bus? Again, a pit maneuver could endanger the female suspect, could endanger other drivers nearby. But it also could be the key to finally ending this. At some point, this car's got to run out of gas.
I like what Kimberly had to say. Kudos to the police for proceeding carefully. We've seen that through those intersections there. The concern, obviously, is a female passenger there, a domestic violence situation. So it really does change the game when it comes to bringing a pursuit like this to an end.
So we continue to follow a suspect that is wanted for some sort of domestic violence. There is a female passenger in the front seat of the car, a male driver who has been driving for several hours now through the streets of Los Angeles and Orange counties.
Cindy noting, I bet the girl is so scared. I was just kind of thinking what the conversation might be in that vehicle with this suspect driving for more than, what are we coming up on, 3 hours at some point? A 3-hour pursuit here with police behind them, several attempts at a pit maneuver. I can't imagine what the talk is inside that vehicle. Dangerous move there as that car goes around another vehicle. Michelle, what you said, courage.
So now we start seeing, as we see dusk, and we start to see that the police helicopter's light take effect, and we start seeing those lights and sirens take effect more. Now we're approaching an intersection where there is traffic. So what's going to happen here? He stops, avoids the traffic, and then keeps going. But
Alex, I'm wondering, this was not a report of a stolen car in any way, was it? We don't have a report of a stolen car, but we don't know if whose car this is. If this is his car, if this is her car. We are now back in East Los Angeles. Right. So to answer what Ryan is asking about, if police know who this suspect is, they're going to get him at some point. So the question is, if they know it's domestic violence, my question is, how do they know that? Where do they get that information? And do they know whom they're dealing with?
Right. Did she call? Did somebody else call? There's still a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to that.
Rosie, I don't think there's any word of kids in the car. Am I right, Alex? You've been on this for a couple of hours.
We have not seen that, and we have not seen evidence of that. The actions of this guy certainly jive with the concept of a domestic violence situation.
And Gabby brings up the concern that, what happens when this does come to an end with this suspect and this domestic violence situation and a woman in the vehicle. There are great concerns for her safety when this does come to an end.
Yeah.
And that's why they're proceeding with such caution. And I also think that police officers have to be, really on alert, because they're going to have to handle this in a certain way with this suspect to see how he reacts when they stop the car.
So we are now 2.5 hours into this pursuit, a pursuit that started before 5:20 tonight and is now still going as we are at 7:53, approaching the 8 o'clock hour.
Okay, Robert, thank you for your information. Let's see. A lot of people commenting on how they've stepped away from this coverage, done whatever they had to do for a little bit, and came back surprised to see the pursuit still on. Well, I came in from a community event. I was surprised to hear you all say you've been on it for 2 hours, coming up on, 3 hours now?
Well, and we had a situation where our chopper had to go down to fuel. We figured, well, that'll still be the end of it. It fuels, gets back up, finds it again, and it's still going, and we've been on for another hour. So we are now in the Monterey Park community, which of course is the home, or was the longtime home, of the LA Sheriff's Department. Now they're based in Los Angeles, but the California Highway Patrol is leading the way and now has some wide open space here. We've seen one unsuccessful pit maneuver, at least so far. One wonders if they're about to try a second one here. Whenever this driver senses that a pit maneuver is about to come, he does speed up and seems to get away from the CHP.
Tracy, to answer your question, I picked up this pursuit around 7:30, so I'm having Alex bring me up to speed. I had not been covering it. I had been at a community event, so I'm still getting some of the information. Some of you are giving us information on the domestic violence nature of this, so I'm just wanting to confirm that with Alex.
John says he took a nap, sold an AC unit, deposited money at the bank, paid some bill, and it's still going on. So there you go. There's some perspective from John and his evening tonight. Meanwhile, I've been on the air the entire time with this pursuit, which continues. We have seen some moments of real tension in this as this driver continues to evade police. Now it looks like a busy intersection. This is where things get the most dangerous. The driver not stopping, continuing to evade.
Adrienne, thank you. I appreciate your thoughts. Don, yes, we're trying to give you as much information as possible, yet also not go beyond that as we try to cover this pursuit. So a lot of it is just based on observation, because police haven't released a lot of information on this yet. So we're doing the best we can with the information we have as we observe this with you all.
So there we go. The window is back down. You can see that female passenger in the side there. It looks like her legs are back up.
Getting darker out there, obviously. You started this pursuit when it was broad daylight, on freeways, on surface streets. Was this always a CHP pursuit, Alex?
No, started with Southgate taking the lead for a while. CHP took over about maybe an hour ago once it was on the freeway. As Dennis Zine, our police specialist, pointed out, CHP, California Highway Patrol, has the most experience and most training when it comes to pursuits. They practice for it the most, and so they may be the best positioned to sort of take the lead on this, especially on something that has been through so many different jurisdictions. I mean, must have been through 50 jurisdictions at this point.
The male anchor, Chris, is Alex Michelson, and he's been covering this since about 5:30. You have to wonder how much gas is in this car. They could go for hours.
You do. I mean, as several of our viewers are pointing out, kind of a nice advertisement for the fuel efficiency of the Honda Accord. You wonder if it's maybe a hybrid version too, which would increase that even more in terms of the fuel efficiency.
Westbound Garvey here. Okay. Ramona Boulevard now. All right.
We're in this Alhambra, near the I-10 East.
CHP tends to be the agency that covers this on freeways. We've been now on surface streets for a bit of time here. So wondering if another agency would pick this up. I'm sorry, refresh my memory. Who started this pursuit? Which agency?
Southgate Police.
PD? All right.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they would be the arresting agency, that the suspect would be turned over to Southgate?
Maybe. I mean, what we don't know is exactly what the original crime was. You know, there's still a lot of questions that we will have, and I think police will be a lot more willing to answer some of them once this hopefully comes to a safe conclusion and that victim is, you know, free from this situation.
And then because it's becoming nightfall, this gets even more dangerous for law enforcement when this does come to a close. It's harder to see the suspect's hands, harder to see situations that they have to deal with to bring this to a safe ending here. I'm wondering if a local jurisdiction would pick this back up, being that it's been on surface streets for so long, or because the person keeps going back and forth, freeways, surface, back to surface streets, will the CHP stay with it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he hadn't been in one local jurisdiction for very long. He seems to keep moving through so many of them. We are now in the East Los Angeles area once again. And we are now getting onto another freeway, as you mentioned, Christine. Here we go, back onto a freeway, back about to pick up the speeds once again. We are moving on to the 10 in East LA, eastbound 10.
Hi, DG. Thanks for your thoughts on us keeping this coverage up. And hi, Reagan, to you as well. Reagan's noting that this is an everyday occurrence in Los Angeles.
Not quite this.
However, right, a pursuit that's lasted over 2 hours. That's not the everyday pursuit, nor is a domestic violence situation with a female passenger in the car an everyday pursuit. But
and in 20 minutes, we will be approaching 3 hours for this pursuit.
Thanks, Reagan, for being on the pursuit and watching our coverage with us. Justin, you're talking about everyone's safety. I think that the later it gets at night, the concern is obviously it being dark outside, but then also you have fewer pedestrians on the streets, you have fewer cars out on the streets and on the freeways. So on that note, it's just a little bit safer for law enforcement on that note.
Layla pointing out on our Facebook page how amazing it has been to see so much light traffic on the streets of Los Angeles and how that has helped impact this pursuit, perhaps made it easier for this guy to continue to get away for close to 3 hours now. And that is certainly something that we've been noticing as well. Yes, it is, and as Shar is mentioning, it is almost Empire time. For those of you that enjoy a two-screen experience, Jussie Smollett's final episode of Empire is going to be airing on Fox 11 starting right now, and we will continue to broadcast this on the Fox 11 Los Angeles Facebook page and on foxla.com/live.
Manny noting the work of dispatchers, saying they have to type everything up. I'm sure they're exhausted. All right, imagine also, Manny, the police report and how much they have to document as they document every move, every turn, every, violation. Violation right there, driving in the wrong lane.
Driving on the wrong side of the road. Yeah, I mean, the They will have evidence from every police or from a news helicopter in Los Angeles to use as evidence in a potential prosecution against this suspect.
Sherry asking if there's only one headlight on the car. It's hard for me to tell from this vantage point. Oscar, can you tell if the headlights are working on the car? Could you tell?
I can't see that they're on.
Yeah, it's hard to see. It looks pretty dark. Oh, maybe just the left one is on. It's hard to see from this perspective, this angle.
And you wonder if what kind of damage this car may have sustained between running into a fence earlier and also police attempting, or CHP attempting to pit maneuver the car. The front end left side damage happened, I think, during the fence, and the back end right end damage might have happened during the pit maneuver attempt.
Jason, you've been watching from Pennsylvania. I'm always amazed that people find these pursuits and find this coverage in parts all over the world. Somebody mentioning it's like 2, 3 in the morning from where they're. All right, Kevin Dakumi, our reporter, our contributor to, says there's no lights. So Kevin, what is this light you're seeing here? If Kevin, you can answer that question, because Kevin's saying no lights. Okay, Jamie, you're saying one functioning headlight. I gotcha.
One thing a lot of our viewers are saying is that they believe that this suspect may have been trying to push the suspect out of the vehicle earlier. That is not the way that I saw it, but I was seeing it in not a great monitor and saw it quickly and haven't been able to watch it back. So that is very much possible that he was trying to push her out. He has been angry at her, yelling at her.
What's a parking light?
Whoa! Oh, that was just a change in the shot. Yeah, although clearly these roads are being illuminated by the police helicopter ahead.
So a lot of folks are noticing or commenting about when the driver hit the fence, what kind of damage was done to the car, or perhaps the lights. Alex, paint a picture for us, for those who weren't watching, and even for myself, because I was coming into work
now
this
we're
shift.
Transitioning onto another freeway.
Talk about him hitting the fence there. What was that like?
So he pulls into this side street, this alley. It looks like he's completely out of space. He's got nowhere to go. He's boxed in. There's a chain link fence in front of him, and then he just drives through it. And the chain link fence seemed to hit mostly on the front left side of the vehicle, which is where the headlight may have been damaged. And he just kept going. And then nearby that chain link fence was a park full of people out for the evening, and he just drove through the park. Through trees and other things, and then got back onto another road.
Per our Kevin Dakumi, eastbound 60 freeway here, going at a high rate of speed, lit up there by that helicopter night sun. So, Alex, when he hit that fence, was there a thought that, okay, this pursuit's coming to an end right here?
Oh, yeah.
It's over?
It looked like he was coming to an end because he was boxed in and there was a fence there, and he just said, I'm going to go through it. I mean, there's been a few moments where it looked like this was going to end. Headlights are off. Kevin from Ontario, Canada, thanks for watching us from there. If this guy crashes with her feet on the dash like that, the airbag will push her knees. That's what I was thinking as well. How dangerous a position she was sitting in earlier. We don't know if she's in that position right now.
Sandra, thank you for the perspective. Sandra pointing out that if you subscribe to local Fox affiliates wherever you are across the country, that this might pop up on their feed. That could be one way. Thanks, Sandra. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Well, thank you for joining us in Los Angeles. My name is Alex Michelson. If you don't usually watch us, I'm with Christine Devine. We anchor the Fox 11 10 o'clock news here in Los Angeles.
And 5 o'clock.
And 5
I was
o'clock
off it
news.
today. You were on it.
Yes.
You've been on this pursuit for hours.
Been working a long time at this, and we appreciate your viewership, and we appreciate if you'll join us on TV as well tonight. So we are now What
Yeah.
time is it now? 8:06.
Yeah. You picked it up at what time?
We picked it up at 5:25 on the air. There she is, though. We're getting another good look at her feet on the dashboard.
Look at that. Look at what's.
And there's a struggle.
Wow.
There's a
Oh my
struggle
gosh.
going on. It looks like they may be
wow.
fighting, physically fighting in the car as he drives at 64 miles an hour on the
gosh.
freeway. Look at that.
Boy, that is just so scary.
Wow. A
And,
physical struggle there, which you can see through the lights. The lights of this vehicle are not on as it drives. I mean, it is amazing that this guy has been able to do all of the things that he's been able to do while at the same time engaging in this sort of battle with this woman. Just from a driving perspective. Now we're at 80 miles an hour. We're on the 60 eastbound. We're in Monterey Park, and things are getting more dangerous.
Boy, the fact that they're going at this high rate of speed, I can't imagine the conversation in that vehicle at this time. You see again her legs still up. It's hard to tell what that struggle was about. To be a fly on the wall inside that vehicle, to know what's going on. Is she asking him to pull over, begging him to pull over? We just don't know. Police not revealing anything yet to us about the suspect, who he is or who she is. I'm hoping they know who they are and have some good leads on that. 60 eastbound right now at Rosemead. We're in the Montebello area. We've been in the Montebello area for some time, Rosemead now. On the surface streets.
We're now approaching 100 miles an hour. This is the fastest that we've been throughout this nearly 3 hours in terms of the pursuit. Several of our viewers are commenting, asking questions about if there's a child in the back or if this woman may be pregnant. We don't know the answer to either of those things. We do not have any official report from there being a child in the back, but as you can see, that back window is very darkly tinted and has never come down. So we have not gotten a good look at that vehicle. We also don't have a close enough view of her to determine whether she may be
Oscar,
pregnant.
Confirm that speed for me. How fast is this driver going? 98 miles per hour with this passenger in the vehicle coming up on the 605 freeway soon. Okay, slowing down here now to, 80 miles per hour here. The only, I thank goodness it is open in a way that perhaps it's safer that it's open. But then if there was more traffic, to slow down the vehicle, if he was boxed in, perhaps it would help bring it to a close. Really dangerous.
Yeah.
Somebody commenting that the woman with her legs up looks like she's relaxed. I don't know if there's anything relaxing at all about being in a 2.5 hour pursuit.
And it looks like being beaten during it. I mean, there was clear verbal abuse happening earlier, but what we just saw about 5 minutes ago and what we saw an hour and a half ago, it looked like there was some sort of physical fight going on in that car.
It still looks like some agitation there.
Yeah.
Coming up on 3 hours now. Boy, this is really, honestly, the longest pursuit I've seen us on. Boy, I can't even remember a longer pursuit where we've been on the air covering. I mean, sometimes we've had a driver drive towards the Mexico border.
Or a driver drive up north towards Bakersfield, and those go a long time, but then we often lose them because our chopper can't fly up there. This is as long a pursuit as we've had that stayed in our viewing market the entire time.
Lynette, I'm just using the word conversation for lack of a better term. I don't know what's being discussed in this vehicle. And what he's trying to do, that's just perspective. We don't know. He's been continuing the pursuit for 3 hours now. Julie talking about the tinted windows.
Well, thank you all for watching as well. And Granny, my name's Alex Michelson, along with the fabulous Miss Christine Devine. You have to wonder. I mean, the moment that you really fear about with this is, if this stops, if there is a pit maneuver, if he runs out of gas, is this guy armed? Mm-hmm. Is there somebody else in the back seat? What is the condition physically of this woman, and what is he going to do to her? how do you get that woman safely out of the vehicle?
Yeah.
Those are some of
That's
the
my
big
concern.
questions that we've now had for going on 3 hours.
All right, look at the moves here during a little bit of traffic, not overly heavy traffic. You were talking about the lengthy pursuits. Our Kevin Takumi telling us that back in the day, he did cover a pursuit all the way to Bakersfield.
Yeah. I can remember those. And I remember the night that Dan Cohen's last night with you. You guys were on the air for, what, until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning with the pursuit?
Yeah.
And that started in the 10 o'clock hour?
That's right.
So that was a several-hour pursuit as well.
Thanks, Kevin. Hacienda Heights area.
Yeah, so they're eastbound 60. Hacienda Heights.
Eastbound 60. Yeah, Sam, I'm not sure. It's hard to see, what she's exactly wearing. It's just too hard for me to guess, and at this point it would be just a guess.
So we're in the San Gabriel Valley now in the eastbound 60, another part of our market that is now engaged in a pursuit that has included East Los Angeles, South Los Angeles, Northern Orange County, Huntington Beach, Long Beach, so many different communities impacted by this pursuit.
Yeah, Meg, I agree with Meg. We can't speculate why the the passenger is sitting the way she's sitting, legs up, legs down. I mean, none of us are in this situation. A 3-hour pursuit on freeways, surface streets, being pursued by a police helicopter, CHP vehicles behind you. I mean, it would be just a guess for any of us to guess why the legs are up, the legs are down. It's just a guess.
Yeah, so now we're going.
Yeah, Christy, we have had the chopper able to zoom in just a little bit there. That's where we really saw that struggle inside the car.
Yeah, the comments that all of you
very true.
Are saying is that it appears that so much concern for this female.
You can see that window still open. It's a cool night, at least here on the west side. It was very cool tonight and very overcast. Somebody talked about not running AC to save gas, but I can tell you on the west side, there would be no need for AC tonight.
Andrew saying that he's watching from northern Georgia, and he's now finished 3 loads of laundry during the 3 hours of this pursuit. We are now approaching the 3-hour mark that this has been continuing. A domestic violence suspect with a potential, certainly looks like a victim of domestic violence that we have noticed ourselves in the passenger seat, now driving quickly on the freeway. At some points he's approached 98 miles an hour. He's driven through a fence. He's driven on sidewalks. He's driven in every which way to get away from law enforcement. CHP leading the pursuit now after several agencies were involved earlier.
Thank you, Kevin Takumi, for giving us the update that the information 60 freeway coming up on the 57 interchange. This has not been an area where you've seen this pursuit earlier tonight, correct,
No.
Alex? You haven't been
No.
this far east.
No.
Okay.
So there you see, get a good look at looks like, is that a sheriff's helicopter?
Looks like it.
Looks like a sheriff's logo there, putting the light on that. Our chopper trying not to get in the way of the law enforcement vehicle there. And now you
wow.
see right
Wow,
there
look
a
at that.
CHP officer ahead of the vehicle. Is this
You're asking, is this an intentional move by law enforcement?
right?
Or did this CHP officer just happen to be at this spot?
And you're nervous for these drivers that are nearby. And look, the CHP looking like he's trying to box them in.
Is that sheriff?
And you wonder, you got to, if it is sheriff, if that air helicopter that we were just in was coordinating with that driver. So the speed really picking up here as we continue on the freeway. Now we're getting off the freeway going back onto side streets. Will he continue to take this off ramp? Yes. About to make a left turn out of this.
Phil Ramos asking me a question. Have I ever seen the after stories of these chases? Have we? Whoa.
No, Gallus, we're now in Roland Heights?
Yes.
Okay.
Have we followed up? Well, we had a pursuit a couple of weeks ago where, if you guys might remember, it was a maintenance truck that was stolen. Okay, weaving in and out of traffic
here we go.
here.
God,
okay.
amazing
Tight
how the
traffic
way
there.
this guy has been able to avoid hitting anything.
Through that red light. So I was saying we had a maintenance truck that was stolen. That crashed.
Here we go into another
a parking lot.
Parking lot. He's used these parking lots as a way to get away from officers. He did this with a McDonald's drive-through. He
Parking.
did this.
Wait,
parking.
Parking. Is he going to run?
Getting out.
He's going to run.
Getting
he's
out.
Run.
Okay, now we got a foot
he's
pursuit.
Run.
We're now following this guy. Where are we right now?
We were near the 57 and the 60. All right, people, this is a very commercial area. You have to wonder if the suspect is running into a store.
A store, which could be a barricade situation.
Yeah.
And we also never saw the woman get out. We're a 99-cent store.
People
Look at
running.
people
Must have run
leaving, trying to
inside
get
there.
out of there.
Oh my
Officers
gosh.
saying, get out of the... Oh, my
gosh. All right, so
wow. Look at the fear in these people's faces as they're now being forced to leave this 99-cent store. Look, a little girl there.
Look at the far back there. People fleeing with a grocery cart. Just
wow.
Get out of the way, find safety.
So you wonder if this guy is armed. We did not see evidence of him holding a gun, but you never know what was inside there. You can imagine the highway patrol officers yelling at everybody to get out of there. Have we been able to see the passenger door of that car is open, which leads you to believe possibly the female got out of there safely? We don't know that. Our camera didn't get to see it.
That store was very crowded at this hour, 8:20 p.m. here in Los Angeles. Look at the amount of people coming out of that store, that 99-cent store. Boy. Okay, look at law enforcement there below, asking them to clear that store. All right, so obviously, people, they're at the store after work, after school. Probably it closes maybe 9 o'clock, so people getting their last-minute shopping done. People telling them to get, oh gosh, still more people in the store.
Everybody's saying, get out, go, come out now. This looks like a gentleman maybe with a cane. May not be easy for him to move.
An employee there. Okay, law enforcement going in. You have to appreciate the job of law enforcement here. Everybody else exiting, and they go in.
This older gentleman,
he needs to keep moving out of the way.
Seems a bit confused.
Yeah.
Okay, now they're going through the aisles of this 99-cent store. And we don't know if he was able... It's possible he got out the back.
Yeah. Al, I can't finish the story right now about the past chase because this is a pretty big development here where you finally have this pursuit that has come to an end here. This is the spot where the passenger was in that vehicle. Police, though, were concentrating on the driver and thinking about all of the customers inside that store. So we'll focus on that right now to try to see if they can bring this to a close.
There are two possibilities.
Okay. In there or not in there?
Well, those are the two possibilities.
Sorry.
The other possibility is it possible that he grabbed some clothes from in there or something and then ran out the store?
That quick?
I mean,
could he have escaped with everybody else?
there was all that chaos, right? All those people.
I suppose that could happen.
I mean, it's unlikely, but it's not like there was much of a suspect description of him at that point. I mean, that was our first look at him.
And I wasn't trying to make a joke. I was trying to. I said in or out. Could there be a back door?
Is there a back door? Because they're now going to go row by row and try to clear this store looking for this guy, unless he happens to be hanging out somewhere.
Yeah, Michelle, I agree with you. There were police cars in the back as well. So who knows? I mean, gosh, they're walking out rather calmly. Are they thinking that perhaps he's not inside that store there?
Or did they apprehend him? I mean, did they take him into custody? What I want to know is what happened to that woman.
Yeah.
We haven't seen her. So we have, just from an operational perspective, we do have our news crews now headed to this 99-cent store to try to give us some perspective on the ground, to try to see if we can, talk to some of those people and to try to. Okay, so now we're looking at that vehicle, and is she still in the front seat?
I can't tell. Hard to tell. All right. So, wait.
Okay, there he is.
They got him. All right.
The suspect is now in custody. It is a peaceful end to a wild pursuit. We are now over 3 hours since this began, and it appears that the suspect is in custody. Now we go back to the car. Now we're going to get a look in the back seat of that car. People were wondering if there were kids or other people in the back seat. We're about to have that answer.
The question you bring up, Alex, is where is that woman? Perhaps she got to safety somehow. Did she run? We just don't know. If I had been in a 3-hour pursuit in that car, I might want to get away from the car myself.
Yeah.
But we don't know. It's just a guess now. So obviously they're looking at that car, perhaps trying to get some kind of information.
Is she still in the front seat?
Yeah. This angle, I can't tell.
I mean, they're certainly taking a long time there.
Well, there you have it. People watch these pursuits and they ask how many times do they get away. This was a long pursuit with a lot of law enforcement and a lot of time invested in trying to bring this to a safe ending. You sometimes have a suspect pull over to a place that they're familiar with. I haven't seen this happen often where it's at a shopping mall or shopping location. Sometimes they'll go into a garage at a shopping mall and kind of try to disappear. But right here you have a strip mall. And of course, the big concern is the safety of all those customers in that store. Alex?
Yeah. I remember a pursuit a few years back that I was on where they did something similar, pulled in and went into a restaurant. And I was not far behind it. And then everybody ran out of the restaurant and became a hostage situation. And that was one of the more terrifying and more memorable pursuits in recent memory here. The big question, I mean, I think we all want to know is first off, who's this person parking here? Secondly, what is the deal with this woman?
Well, look, law enforcement there saying, don't park here.
Stringer.
Yeah, don't park here. Back it up.
Yeah, that looks like it's a somebody that's paid by the story to get video. Is the woman in that front seat? Why are they spending so much time at that car? And we have not seen an ambulance or anything. They searched the trunk. But why, if this car was cleared, would they still be standing there? That leads one to believe maybe the woman is still there.
Possibly hurt?
Possibly hurt. I mean, she clearly was getting beaten up. Or certainly appeared to be beaten up. We don't know that for a fact.
All I can say is as I look at this here at this 99-cent store, I'm just so grateful that there was not anybody taken hostage, apparently, nor hurt. This suspect, was pretty quick on his feet to get out of that vehicle and run into a location there. And you saw how many people were inside that store, how many people came running out in pockets. I'm just really so grateful that there was nobody apparently hurt in this.
And how sort of 0 to 60 that reaction had to be for those customers in the 99-cent store who were nowhere, if you're in the middle of a store and a pursuit just comes to you, you basically have no warning, and then all of a sudden you're running like that.
So a couple of you keep referring to the story that I was starting to tell, what happens when these are over, days later. The pursuit where the truck was stolen, the work truck, ended in a crash. We did follow up when that person was arraigned in court and saw their mugshot, etc. You know, we tend to work in a daily grind business where there's not always a lot of follow-up, but think of all the charges this guy's facing now. All the violations, all the different cities, all the different jurisdictions.
Christine, I think that woman's still in there. I mean, the fact that I think they're communicating with her. We haven't seen her get out of the car. We haven't seen an ambulance anywhere else. You wonder, though, if we are going to see, if she is in there and she is hurt, if there's going to be some sort of ambulance that gets here quickly. And now you see news crews, including our colleagues at KCAL and our own news crew, now arriving on the scene. They were following closely behind this pursuit as it drove from city to city.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for posting on our chat here. Yeah, you're seeing law enforcement keep people at a distance as they might for any investigation. But you're right, Alex, there still are a lot of questions as to that vehicle and the status of that woman who was in that vehicle and where she is and how she's doing. Also, the suspect, was the suspect placed in that car right there?
Yes.
So the suspect
hasn't left yet.
Makes you wonder if they're still trying to get some information.
I mean, you would imagine the information might be pertaining to this woman and what was going on.
Okay,
Yeah,
Linda, thanks for your perspective. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not going to feel better until I see this woman safely out of that vehicle. It's possible that she already is. I just don't. If she was, why would there be several officers pointed right there talking to her? I think she's in. I think you can see her. And they're talking to her.
If you would have asked me how this pursuit was going to come to an end, the driver pulling there into a parking spot at a strip mall was not necessarily how I would have predicted this one. Somebody noted about him taking the time to pull in the spot and not just pulling up and ditching the car. How these come to an end, they all differ, they all vary, but it looks like, who's recording there? I'm surprised they're letting that person record there unless that's law enforcement. Ask him to go.
That appears,
to
my guess is that's a stringer.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a chaotic scene.
Well,
It is also possible that law enforcement is not too thrilled with this guy after leading them on a pursuit for 3 hours, and they might allow some cameras to get a good look at him after as well.
I'm thinking by 10 p.m. we'll have a possible picture of this suspect and what he looks like.
Now they're going to move. It looks like a lot of camera guys, including possibly ours.
Yeah, Mike, the person that was in the car that was hit by the truck that we covered a couple weeks ago, it looked like a very bad crash, but I understand that the injuries were not as bad as you might have thought with the nature of a crash like that, and I believe the last report was that she was going to be okay.
Although okay, so that looks like that may be our Ed Laskos there on the ground. As reporters try to see what we are seeing here, which is a closer look at. So it appears that this woman is maybe unresponsive, or it clearly appears to be hurt. If she wasn't, you would imagine that they would just get her out of this vehicle. There is now an ambulance nearby. It looks like the fire department has something. The question is, are they going to be able to get her out of there?
So in case you're just joining us here, it's 8:30 at Fox 11 News in Los Angeles. I'm Christine Devine here with my co-anchor Alex Michelson. Alex has been on this pursuit since 5:30 tonight, so you can imagine the time that we've been following this, only for it to end here at a 99-cent store. And the concern is the woman passenger. Somebody said, okay, the pursuit's over. Well, the concern now is that woman passenger. Remember, this was said to be a domestic violence situation, a 3-hour pursuit, more than a 3-hour pursuit on surface streets and freeways. And now, because this scene right here is not over, there's no conclusion right now at this scene. Police there, law enforcement moving in there with that police tape to keep people away and to move those news crews back. So this scene is still ongoing.
Usually in a crime scene, law enforcement would have a little bit of a heads up before the news media gets there, and so they would create a police tape and all that other sort of thing. But because we were following this so closely and got there literally within minutes of this situation, that whole process has not happened yet, which is why we're seeing some of the news crews get so close. So we now see what looks like a gurney that's being brought in to try to get this woman out of there. These are some of the EMS workers that are here to try to help this person. You wonder if they, it's not very much room there. They could move that other car. But they're bringing in So now the question is the health and the well-being of this woman that we have seen her would appear to be beaten, verbally abused for hours, about 3 hours, through multiple different jurisdictions, and we are trying to figure out how exactly she's doing. So now they are taking this woman. She's able to. It looks like she's able to walk, or at least they're able to carry her out. Can we tell if she's conscious? So they're taking her out. It looks like she is conscious, putting her onto a gurney. We see her legs. We see they're putting, it looks like a blanket on her.
Well, she's been through quite an ordeal, over 3-hour pursuit. We don't have any information as to the nature of the relationship between the driver and this woman. A few of you are asking about somebody being in the back seat of the vehicle or a child in the back seat. We are not hearing that, and I don't see law enforcement dealing with the back seat.
If there was, they would get them out of there by now.
Yeah.
I think they were able to clear the rest of the car. So the fact is, I wonder if we can zoom in on. Yeah.
Okay. We have a reporter there on the scene. I was hoping to get that reporter on with us here on the Facebook Live, but they're in the midst of trying to get interviews and get more information. Okay, Alex, do I have this right? The vehicle that had the suspect has been moved? Is that right? Is the suspect out of there?
It looks like it has been moved. Either the vehicle's been moved or the guy's out of there. It's one of those two, but it certainly is not where it used to be. Again, it looks like law enforcement now clearing the rest of the car, making sure that nobody else is in there, but the fact that they haven't pulled any kids or anybody from there is a good sign. So now we get a good look at this woman being loaded into an ambulance, and we see some of the media cameras there, and she will hopefully be taken to safety. Let's hope that she is okay, and that we get a positive update on her condition. I know there were reports, some of our viewers were saying reports of her being unconscious and maybe she was knocked unconscious temporarily. It looked like she was conscious, didn't it?
It seems so. Nadine asking us to let you all know how she's doing and if she's okay. It's 8:30 now. We hope to have a more full report at 10 p.m. tonight. Not sure how much information law enforcement will give us up as we start our newscast at 10. But I appreciate those of you who are truly concerned about, what appears to be a victim in this pursuit. That was the initial concern, that there was some kind of domestic violence matter. We'll have to see what the outcome is on this one.
So, well, it appears that we do have some resolution on this story, finally, after more than 3 hours. We thank you for joining us on our Facebook page, the hundreds of thousands of you that have joined in. At one point, this broadcast had over 120,000 people watching on our Facebook page. A 3-hour pursuit. It is now over. The suspect is in custody. The biggest concern has been about the female passenger that appears to be the victim of domestic abuse, including domestic abuse during the pursuit itself. She is now in that ambulance. She is now being cared for by rescue workers, and we will continue to follow this. Our Ed Laskos, as you just saw, is there. He is in the process of talking to law enforcement, talking to some of the terrified shoppers at the 99-cent store who were forced to flee, and trying to get more information about who this guy is and who that woman is and her condition tonight. So we thank you all for joining us. I'm going to finally take a bathroom break after 3.5 hours
All right,
of this.
Alex, you and Marla Tejas were on this in the 5 o'clock hour, and so we will bring you the update tonight on Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock. Our reporter is there on the scene, and we thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
The next week.